else?
So I had mentioned in that,
Oh,
sorry.
there we go. So I was wondering when Michael Middleton was going to talk.
I had mentioned in that group chat, which I love the WhatsApp. I don't know why. It just seems approachable and easy. That group chat you guys have going
real
on.
quick. On that note, just a shameless plug. So there's like a handful of people that are using that group chat and getting the benefits from it. Michael is a big one of them. Fernando Landon. I don't know if the guys are on the call from Salt Lake City, but they're using it quite a bit. And it really is something that Michael's making use out of because he's making use out of it. It's really like having this group call access almost at all times, right? So you're getting to chat with other contractors, get help from them, get help from our team outside of your meeting, right? About anything. So it's one of those things that it's new, but it's kind of starting to roll a little bit, and I appreciate you saying that, Michael. So anyway, go back to your win.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool just to dovetail on that. I don't speak, I stutter a lot, as if you can tell. So I type better and I feel better sharing on the WhatsApp, and the prompts kind of get me thinking about what I'm doing in my business. So I'm all for it. But I had mentioned in the group chat that sales were going slow, as it does this time of year. And so I started doing demonstrations out there, and we went 3 for 4, still waiting on the 4th one. So we sold all the jobs that we did demonstrations for. So that was a good momentum change this week.
Really good work, buddy.
Huge.
That is really big. By the way, I've never noticed that you stutter. Like, never. I've never noticed that. So
now you won't be able to not.
well, what I'm saying is I think it may be in your head more than it is in reality, just to give you some reflection. I've always thought that you were a great communicator.
Great. Thank you.
What other wins we got going on today, guys? Yeah. And same kind of talking about the group chat. I know we had a client, and I'm pulling up the group chat now to see who it was who was asking. I think it was Chris who was asking about 3D rendering softwares and just like anybody's experience. That's why I texted you, Riley, and I did put the link to the one you use in the group chat. But just if anybody has a rendering software that they found is pretty easy to use, pretty quick, would love for you to either put that in the group chat here or in the WhatsApp. Riley, I'm going to put the link to yours on the group or on our chat here right now.
Yeah. I think Luke was talking to me yesterday about.
It's a phenomenal tool. I've gotten like really good feedback. Of course, there's a learning curve to anything like that, but I can even try to send some pictures of the renderings and snapshots from jobs that I send to my customers, kind of like give them like a whole design package. And like I said, it's if it's something you can afford to outsource, like fantastic. But personally, I just kind of have a knack for it, so I have found it to be something that's worth cutting the cost. But it's like $115 a month and really does deliver a pretty solid product that I haven't really gotten any bad feedback on. So
awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we went with Riley's recommendation, signed up, and we're loving it so far as well.
Great.
So
That's cool.
For the cost, it's worth it.
Dude, really good. Really glad you did that, Luke. Appreciate you sharing, man. Philip, you got something?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Riley, how do you guys approach that sales process when you're going through design? Is it like, hey, we'll kind of design your kitchen for X amount, and then we'll get you a price, or we'll get you a ballpark price and then design it and then give you a more hard price?
Yeah, so in our initial consultation, depending on what the space is, bathroom, kitchen, basement, right? I'll take all of my measurements and really just hear what their, vision or goals are for the space, jot that down. And then with my measurements, I'm able to put that into the software, map out the space. And then of course, following code and, functionality restrictions and stuff, I develop what I think to be the best floor plan. And then I just kind of put some stock, products in there in terms of cabinetry. They have a pretty nice library of tile, wood finishes, really anything, you name it, you can do it. You can even build a whole house within the software They have hundreds of different products, roofing, siding, windows, you name it. So it's pretty versatile in that respect. But basically, I'll do my initial proposal, and that's more or less like a pre-construction phase. I'll take an initial deposit, and then we'll go to my interior finish vendor. We'll land on products. So I more or less, the prices that are in the proposal, they kind of serve as like an allowance. So I usually tell my customers, hey, any of the tile with the purple dot down to yellow dot, that's going to fit in your budget. Purple dot will be exactly where I quoted you. Anything lower than that, you'll save some money on those products, but then if you go to the black and gold stickers for tile, you're looking at another 5 to 10% increase. And, kind of go down the line for, any product they are going to have to choose. And then once I get those, once we make those selections and then I get my pricing back from the vendor, I update the estimate. And in Builder Trend, once you do that, you can lock the estimate, and then I send that to the customer for their secondary approval. And then I collect the deposit based on that secondary proposal. So the initial deposit's like $1,000 retainer scheduling fee, essentially. And then once we pick their actual products, that price is what gets reflected on the working agreement that we sign, and that's what I build the draw schedule off of. And then of course, under Cost Plus with Builder Trend, you can, just update the cost that you're actually spending on products. But the idea is once we lock that estimate and send it over for that secondary approval, that in theory should be within that 7 to 10% variance tolerance. Of course, we try to keep that as low as possible. But in that process of doing it that way, by the time we actually get into the job and get the job finished, unless we open up a wall and there's 30 years of termite damage and rot, we typically don't see much of a variance, above 5% on our proposals, and that's in the scenario that we don't get a customer that has a new change order every week or something. But that typically ends up working out really well. And again, with Cost Plus, we can be really transparent. But that's more or less how we structure the process going into the remodels and builds.
And do you, the $1,000 that you charge for the pre-con, is that before you produce the rendering, or is that, is that after?
So that's that $1,000 will be collected in the initial appointment, or once they've already kind of gotten that first proposal and the design. So I give them the design and layout, and I tell people, hey, these are just kind of stock products that my software has. Of course, I can't necessarily put exactly what we can purchase, but it's more or less a placeholder just so we can visualize the space. But yeah, I present that the design in my mock-up, or the rendering rather, with my initial proposal, and then that's when we move into product selection.
Gotcha. Okay.
If that answered your question, yeah.
For sure.
Lancer, you want to jump in there?
My bad. I didn't mean to press that button.
Oh, no worries.
I'm enjoying the conversation though.
Yeah, you gotta have something good to say, bro. Come on.
All right,
You
I
got
do.
some go. Okay, there we go.
All right, I do.
He just wanted us
We
to
started. It's a win. It's a win and a comment, I guess, about the sales process. But we started using House Pro, totally sick software. So the other day we did an estimate for somebody for a kitchen remodel. While I was there doing the consult, we have doors and samples and things like that, so they kind of get an idea of like what we're looking at, what's the difference between shaker and frameless and stuff like that. Well, I used the 3D room scan in House Pro to actually create like a full-on layout. Pretty much, it's pretty close, like within half an inch or so of some of those measurements just from the phone. And I was actually able to produce like a 3D rendering for him and show it to him before I left. Just very briefly kind of showing it to him, and then went back and with my proposal as well, put together like a pretty simple design, basically just kind of changing the colors of the stock images that were there, and sent it over. With our bid, and it's almost like a sure thing. People, when you turn it around that quickly, there's two things with it. One, you're kind of going the extra mile in a sense that most people aren't doing that. Two, you're doing it so fast that nobody really can compete with that. Kind of sets the stage for like how the project is going to go going forward. And that's kind of like my big thing is I want to be faster than anyone else. And we can kind of get through the weeds together, during our selection and design process. So I don't know. That's all I had to say.
Really good. That makes me really curious on how it's actually. I know it's been a good lead generation source for people. I didn't realize that it provided those other technologies.
It's insane, dude. So also the AI estimating software, which is new, it's only been around like a month, and you literally you can type in like high-end custom bathroom, install freestanding tub, like just the words alone. It uses national averages, puts together an estimate. I mean, I wrote a $92,000 bathroom flooring estimate the other day. It took like 3 minutes. I mean, it was literally like that fast, and it's detailed line by line.
Are you going back and verifying the information?
Oh, of course. Yeah, you go back and you just double check your quantities or double check your pricing. But
creating it and then double checking it sounds like it takes less than 30 minutes, an hour or something.
It would have taken me hours to do that.
Right. Yeah, dude, that's cool.
Wow.
That's valuable. Keep us updated on that.
Conrad, were you wanting to jump in there?
Yeah, no, I'm using House Pro as well, and I was just wondering if Lance, did you use a LiDAR scan to get that into the system, or is that what you were referring to, or no?
There's one. It just says 3D room scan on mine.
Oh, that is the LiDAR. Yeah, so it's like if you have an iPad, it's like usually just on the iPhones that tech is available. Just FYI. So if anyone, otherwise you have to kind of manually measure the room and scan it, where the LiDAR is now getting so good that you'll be able to do exteriors. That's what I'm waiting for that technology.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can add like a piece of tech onto your iPad, so it does have that distance, like up to like 300 feet. But right now, it's just good for interiors, which is more than most. But yeah, House Pro is definitely doing it.
Yeah, you can also draw by hand too, or even start with a template. So that's pretty cool.
I just put the link in the chat. Lance, will you make sure that that's the right? I think it's the right one, but want to confirm.
Nice.
Okay, well, that is really great stuff. If you guys got anything else hot in your mind, would love to hear it. But want to transition back to Riley. Nicole and I met with Riley last Friday and had a really good meeting, which, by the way, if Riley, as much as we love him, he didn't do anything special. There's nothing special that you have to do if you want to set up a meeting with me. And I'm not even saying I'm that special of a guy. I just thought sometimes getting out of the normal kind of coaching structure, which is really important and needs to be there, but for specific problem solving with me and your coach, anyone can do that. Just talk to your coach about it. We can get it set up. But I learned that Riley was a freaking Army Ranger, man. This dude went to Ranger school, which like it kind of makes sense. The guy kind of looks like a Ranger. I didn't know that until he told me. But he had this problem and then had this big epiphany moment. So Riley, I was hoping that you could share kind of like the problem that you were running into and the epiphany moment that you had, because it seemed like something like switched in your thinking, and the problem that you had was a problem I think most people have or run into at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I kind of touched on it earlier with my second win there, but generally, like I said, we just have gotten so busy and things have been growing and progressing so rapidly that I think we just kind of lost sight of like the organizational side of our operations and really having an established cadence. And in that conversation, talking specifically about the word cadence, is kind of where we got on the topic with the military. But the whole conversation, really, I just saw like a lot of parallels on what I learned in the military and in Ranger School. But in general, the military uses and really drills into every soldier's head, or at least at like the operational organizational level, what they call the military decision-making process, which essentially is a system that the military has in place to analyze a mission and develop a course of action. And then having gone through Ranger School, really the whole idea behind Ranger School is to put soldiers in, essentially put them, you go into sleep deprivation and basically starvation. And then they tell you, hey, now that you're in the worst scenario you've probably ever been in, here's a whole platoon of soldiers, go ahead and lead them on a 24-hour long mission across, 18 kilometers through the mountains, through the desert, through the swamps. And all the while doing that, making sure that you're following that military decision-making process, and specifically constructing and carrying out what they call the operations order, which has 5 paragraphs to it that you have to sit down and develop before a mission. And it basically starts out with, what is the mission? What's the mission statement? What's the end goal of the mission? What's our avenue of approach? What is our, essentially, what's the course of action we're going to take to physically carry out that mission, down to stuff like reconnaissance, how much food do we need, what are our medical supplies, what's our ammunition supply look like, how long is it going to take, are we going to have to set up checkpoints, hide sites and such along the way in order to complete that mission, and then what gets done after the mission is complete, drawing back off of an objective. So the operational mindset has been so drilled and fried into my brain, and since I've been out of the military, it's easy to say, oh, that's the old me. But really it just kind of like reawoke that, like I said, kind of instinctual ability to conduct, a mission in such a stringent and structured way. So the conversation I had with Nicole and Robert really kind of like set that light bulb off, and I was, kind of went into it saying like, I just don't know how to do this. And, in a matter of minutes, I was like, what the hell? I totally know how to do this. So really just kind of drew that parallel of, although the military isn't applicable necessarily in every scenario in, civilian life, I was an infantryman, right? So infantry, combat doesn't translate a whole lot to construction, but it's more like the bigger picture, right? Of just, I do know how to conduct proper meetings. I do know how to carry out a course of action and develop a mission set and a mission plan, how to achieve that goal and what to do, following that goal to move on to the next mission. So it was a cool, eye-opening light bulb moment. And like I said earlier, like I'm really excited with my team to kind of just put that into action. Of course, with a lot less yelling and screaming and starvation and sleep deprivation, in an applicable way, to really just get our business back on track and get out of the weeds in an operational sense, if that kind of answers the question.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I know that I've had some customers where maybe some combat infantry experience would have been handy. No, I'm just kidding. So here's the thing. I was never in the military, right? I told Riley I like playing dress up. So like I'm into firearms and all that. And I went shooting this morning, or not this morning, this last weekend. We got the FAL working. So anyway, all that to say is many of you may have not been in the military, right? And the point of sharing that wasn't necessarily to just help military guys, reference their military training in a way that makes sense for their business. But the big aha moment that I saw that I think can be applied towards everybody that Riley had was he had this problem, and this problem was like things seemed to be busting at the seams all the time. And it was difficult to make continuous progress on the most important things in the business because it was like we were responding to, demands from customers, we were responding to demands from new opportunities. And then those demands would cause us to lose sight of the things that are really important to continuously check on and do that allow us to grow a business and move it forward, right? Allows us to train people, keep everyone in line, follow a process. And so the big aha moment that I saw that Riley had was, so if I just set up a few core rocks in my calendar of the most important things in my business. So for us, we literally just talked about a sales meeting and a project management meeting. And I have an agenda because Riley was open with me. He's like, dude, I got to be honest. Maria, I need you to close your ears. He was like, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to cover in these meetings, right? I don't know if you guys feel like that. It's like Redmond Growth is telling me to have a meeting, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do in this meeting? And so I asked him, Riley, well, what would you want to know about these things, right? What would you want to know about your sales process? What would you want to know about your project management? And so he told me this stuff. Well, hey, in my sales, I want to know where my lead is coming from and how much we're paying for stuff and where leads are at in the sales process and the project management meeting. I want to know how we're doing with completing the project, if we're on, time, what the job costing is looking like. Are we following a budget? And I told him, dude, that is your agenda. Put that on a document and lead your meetings from that way. And if your meetings take 15 minutes or an hour, it doesn't matter. Just whatever needs to be covered, let it cover. So if you are feeling like you're being pulled at all ends and you're not able to make a lot of progress and you feel like you're kind of like having to just react and respond on a daily basis to whatever's on your plate, it may be a good reflection to say maybe you need a cadence, right? Left, 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 right, left. That's a cadence. It's the structure in which we run our businesses. What is the cadence for your business? Start with just a sales meeting. Book it out in your calendar for an hour. Start with a project management meeting, just 2 meetings, 1 hour for each of them each week. What is your agenda? What are you going to cover? What would you want to know in those areas anyway? Put that on a piece of paper, put that on a Google document, agenda, and that is your meeting. And then the only thing that will prevent that from happening is if we're lackadaisical about it. That's where the military kind of mindset really, really steps in. It's like come hell or high water, rain or shine, whatever, we are going to have this meeting at this day, at this time every week, because that is how we run our business. So anyway, I thought it was a really cool insight. I also just thought it was cool that he's our Army Ranger. I remember as a kid watching the Ranger games on TV, being like, oh my God, these dudes are insane. And so now I was too, I don't know if I want to say scared. I just decided to study theology instead of join the military. And now I get to go on boar hunts and play dress up like I'm a military guy. So anyway, appreciate your sharing that. Anyone else got any questions or things that have been shared today that they want to comment on? Jordan, dude, I saw that you were doing your own thing, man. I'm actually interested in what you have to say, but go ahead, dude.
Well, one, Riley, when the end of the world comes, we only live like a couple miles away from each other, so I'm gonna have to lean on you for that one.
Yes, sir. We'll build a compound.
All right. Anyways, the question that I have is for anybody that's implementing incentive-based pay. I'm pretty close to like doing a finalized thing with it, but one thing I'm hung up on is how to account. Like we have a top dollar revenue right now that we're trying to base that incentive off of, because we don't have right now a system in place that tracks inventory, so I can't do like something on a gross profit. My question is how to account for overtime in an incentive-based pay structure. So somebody who's hitting their goal at 40 hours should obviously be incentivized more than somebody who's going over that, going over his goal, but it's taken him 50 hours to hit that. And so I'm wondering if anybody else has come across how to account for overtime on incentive-based pay.
Before I address that with possibly a very simple solution, does anyone have anything that they want to chime in on?
That's what I want is simple. I want something that's replicable.
So Jordan,
and it has no emotion right into it.
What happens if could you just make the bonuses applicable within a 40-hour window?
Yeah, it would. I mean, I would have to track daily hours and stuff. I mean, I would have to be a lot more different than I am right now about tracking.
So let me ask you this: what are your bonuses based on?
Right now, it's $10,000 a week is $100 bonus, and every $500 over that is an additional $25 bonus. And so that I basically went back through like this year's averages, and I found that like that would be like an appropriate number for them to hit. I mean, I know our break even per van is about $7,500 a week. It's like if we're not making $7,500 a week, we're not staying in business. And then
so why does if the bonus is based upon a certain revenue goal, which I think is good, I think the $10,000 mark is a good bonus tier. Why do the hours even matter if people are hitting it?
Well, because I mean, I'm kicking out overtime. You know, I'm paying you time and a half plus a bonus for hitting that same goal. I don't know. In my head, I'm wrapped up around overtime. I don't. Maybe I'm making a big deal about nothing, but.
So I don't know how much overtime we're paying. We could get deeper into it, but I would focus on the outcome being the main thing, the goal being the main thing. And if guys and you know, if guys want to hit and continuously surpass their goal and they have to work overtime to do it, that goal should be based upon profitability that would even make paying the overtime worth it if they hit the goal. Does that make sense?
I mean, I feel that way too. So like the way it worked out, if it would have been like 2 weeks ago, the way it would have worked out would have been each lead would have gotten about somewhere between $250 and $375. That was the range of the different crews. But like one crew was like right at 40 hours and the other crew is at like 58 hours, you know? So it's like I'm already paying them time and a half on basically like 18 hours. I just, in my head, somewhere like in the workings of my head, and maybe I'm thinking about it backwards, somebody who's hitting that goal at 40 hours should be rewarded higher than somebody who's hitting that goal with 18 hours of overtime.
Well, then you could give whenever these situations happen, you could just bonus the guy who does it in 40 hours more than the guys who do it in the overtime.
And I agree with that. I'm just trying to think of something that's like replicable week by week, fair, and like my emotion, whether I'm pissed off or in a good mood that day, has nothing to do with what their bonus is.
Yep. I wonder if part of it is the hybrid system of paying an hourly rate plus the commission versus being fully on commission. Because if they're on full commission, then that's not an issue. They're just paid based on how much they get completed and what they generate in terms of revenue. Whether they do it in some amount of time or not, that's actually up to them. If it took them longer, then they have less opportunity to do more work on the other jobs.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you haven't decided to do full commission?
Because the crews work with an apprentice. So it would be like right now, only the journeyman or the lead is getting the bonus, not the apprentice. So it's like we'd have to hourly the apprentice. And like I have, like I know somebody who has a plumbing company, and the way he does is all of his guys are salary. So it's like it doesn't matter if they work 50 or 30 hours in a week, you're on salary. So I think, I mean, I'm open to all options. I'm not saying I've got to figure out.
To Bryce's point, I think it'd be okay if you paid your apprentice guys hourly and paid your service techs on a commission. The service techs are probably the ones who are doing the selling anyway, and they deserve most of the rewards. The apprentices are apprentices. They're training, they're helping, they're getting their skills developed to become a service tech one day, right? Now, if you like, I think you should almost release such a need of needing always to follow a structure. Like if you see apprentice busting ass, you know, and he's contributing towards getting this, you know, things done in 40 hours and the whole team doesn't have to work overtime because of how this apprentice is working. Just when you see that, you can bonus that. Hey, dude, I'm going to put another $100 of bonus on your check just because I like the way you work, right? Well, why does he get $100? Well, because he's busting his ass and finishing this in 40 hours. Like, that's an easy explanation. And if people are complaining about it, it's an opportunity to challenge them. Well, hey, if you work this way, like, I'll treat you this way too. So I wonder if there's room to do that. The other solution, if you don't want to change the pay, which I recommend doing what Bryce is saying, right? Because guys will always service tech will always end up producing more in a commission structure, even initially if they complain about and say that they don't like it or they're scared or whatever. And there's an approach that you have towards rolling that out. But the other thing that you could do is just find a simple way. What happens if whatever bonus, if you get it done in 40 hours, your bonus is 25% higher, right? When you're talking about the bonus numbers that we're talking about here, $250 to $375, we're not talking about like a ton of money, right? I know distributed off of, everyone, it can add up. But again, we're talking about if people are hitting over $20,000 in a week, so there's room there. And I wonder if a simple solution could just be if you finish it within 40 hours, right, then you just get a 25% higher bonus in the current tier levels, or 50% or whatever, right? Because that will kind of fix the problem that you have, which is guys are working harder to get more done in a shorter time frame. I think they deserve more. Well, yeah, absolutely. That's like obvious, right? So let's just make it easy. Let's just give them more, right? Don't penalize the guys who are still exceeding the revenue tiers, the revenue goals, but are having to work overtime, right? They're still working hard too. They're still trying, right? So continue to bonus them how you're bonusing them, but you think the guys deserve more. We'll just have a simple percentage structure that gives them more. That also isn't necessarily like overcommitment, right? Right. So we're talking about like $50 more. We're talking about like, $75 more.
Right.
There's some good alternatives too in the chat there, Jordan. I'm sure you're seeing them.
I am looking at that. I never thought about it the way I had thought about it the way Keith just posed it, and I never thought about it the way Robert said it, where instead of penalizing the people who went over, just incentivize the people who don't. Kind of working backwards, because for us, like being a small company where we have limited employees, a lot of times it's like, hey, I need you to go knock this call out at the end of the day, or hey, I need you to work over the weekend to get this one wrapped up, or whatever. So it's not like they're going necessarily over on their jobs. I'm just throwing them more work than what. It's not like they're taking longer. I'm just throwing them additional jobs that are making them go OT. Sometimes they take longer than expected, obviously, but a lot of times it's just like, hey, I'm asking you to knock a job out on a Saturday, that we couldn't get to during the week.
Yeah.
I like
great
all
question,
that.
Jordan.
What's that?
It's a great question though. It's good to work through and know what you're moving into. Yeah, I think Arnold's Plumbing is falling in line with what Robert and I were kind of suggesting, or Scott is kind of where you were. But yeah, incentivizing the right activity is better than penalizing. Well, I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but I'll leave that there. Incentivizing the right activity.
Honestly, what Daily Eats of Arnold's Plumbing posts in the chat, I'm just going to read it out loud. We pay our apprentices an hourly wage. We pay our technicians 25% of what they bring in, regardless of the hours they work. They also do not get paid for warranty or callbacks. 25% is, I would say that's generous, right? That's very generous. But I would say a system like that has always been the best system I've ever seen in a service company. I
assume that 25% is a pure commission rate.
Yeah. Well,
Unless
are
it's
you
after
open to
materials.
talking a little bit about your structure? Are you open to unmuting your mic and talking? I'm not going to ask you on camera, bro. Just.
I don't know that he has a mic.
I've seen him on camera. I know the dude has a mic. It's okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there he is. Yes.
Yes,
there he is. I knew it.
Hey. So basically what we do, like I was saying, is we pay our technicians 25% of what they produce. And I find that their sales have gone way up from paying them an hourly wage, with a bonus system. By doing it this way, I'm finding that the guys are a lot more motivated, and because it directly affects their paycheck.
Is that 25% of revenue or gross?
That is 25% of what their total tickets are, parts and everything. It makes it a lot simpler for me to track it and to pay them that. And it really, it makes the math simple. And so the technician knows right where he's at. And anyway, I like it because if they don't do a good job, I don't have to pay them for it. They're going to go back out there and take care of that at their expense.
Any service company I have seen do real numbers, like big numbers. Any service company that I've worked with that has sold for millions has always had this structure. The 25%, that's generous. Most of them have been between 17 and like 22%.
Well, it's a very,
right.
It's real competitive trying to get an employee. And so,
yeah, especially in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's how I'm competing with the big boys out there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I'm not. I love it. I love it. I'm just saying that and Jordan, if you felt this burden and 25% is a lot, you don't necessarily. You could do it 20%, 18%, 22%, whatever makes sense.
I mean, I have no problem with it, but I mean, each guy at a 25% rate there, they'd be getting about a 50% increase in their pay right off the bat, Yeah. And I got no problem with that. I mean, I guess that's like what we were talking about last time we talked. About. In my head, I'm thinking of more money. I'm not thinking of it as, no, this is better for me.
It also makes it a little bit easier when you're creating like a price book, just because you can always factor in just the same percentage every single time into your price, and it's always going to be accurate, and that's always going to be the exact number that reflects as well on your P&L. Now, if you're paying your apprentices hourly, that can increase by a few points, right? But not by much. Anthony, I'm not ignoring your hand. Anthony, do you have something related to this that you want to share? I know you've had your hand up for a minute.
I actually forgot that I had my hand up. I was going to comment at one point on Jordan, just really everything that everybody said, but to simplify it, for your reflection, you are incentivizing sales but measuring time. You're always going to run into this issue. You've got to match your incentive to your metric. So if like they were saying, you're incentivizing people to get it done in 40 hours, more so than over 40 hours. Now you're matching your incentive. You're going to be attached to a lot of guys are on job. And yeah, just like they all said, you've got to find a way to match your incentive to your metric. As long as they're not aligned, mentally. I did actually have a question though before that when Riley was talking. Okay, to bounce back to that, just how much time was Riley spending on tools, or maybe historically before he ramped up the system, how much time was he spending on the tools? How did he break out of it?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. How much time spending on
what?
Riley, how much time do you spend on the tools, or are you spending on the tools now? And if not a lot of time, then how did you break out of the tools?
Are you saying tools with a T?
Yeah, like in the field, doing the work, doing the install.
Yeah, like being an actual worker, like contributing to.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I am not on the jobs unless we have a scenario where we just are in a crunch time and maybe I got to go plug in for a few hours here and there. But generally, I've been working really hard to get myself off the actual jobs.
So he's asking why, how did you do that? Were you ever on the tools and then you transitioned out, and how did that happen?
Oh yeah. So when I started my business, I pretty much did everything except for like my utility installs. So I kind of started out like chucking a truck, and then slowly started developing my list of subcontractors. And then, once I got my good list of subs is really when that started to take me out of the jobs. And then now that I have a project manager, I'm now, when I am at a job, it's just, I try to get into every job at least once a week, just to check in and show face, because I don't like to be the contractor that just picks up checks. But more or less, like, I'm on the job when I sell the job to the customer, and then just kind of like my weekly check-ins, or of course if any issues arise that I need to go solve or deal with the customer. But in terms of actually swinging a hammer, and what I did to get myself out of that was just make sure I'm building a good network of subcontractors. Nicole hammered in my head pretty early that it's so important to have a roster of subs. So if and when one subcontractor for a trade, ends up screwing you, or, whatever, burns a bridge, which has happened to me, it's, I have a backup. And my project manager also grew up in the area. So I've only been here for a couple years. So he also had a pretty good network of people coming into it. So he brought a lot of good contacts for subcontractors to the table. But the model I've built for my business is that I don't want to spin my wheels trying to constantly staff an internal crew to do all the work. I like the subcontractor model, and not just, going to Home Depot and seeing who needs work for the day type subcontractors. It's people that I actually trust and have built a relationship with, and know that they're going to deliver the product that I, hold a standard to, Jordan being one of them, shout out. But that's the model that I've built for my business is, in order to get myself off the jobs, just develop that list of subs, and more so see my business as more managing those subs to do my jobs versus me doing it myself.
Follow-up question, if it's okay. How did you build this list of subcontractors? Did you, I guess, did you work with them before? I've tried subbing out a few times, and I feel like I've gotten burnt just with terrible quality, at least by my standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough game, because there's a lot of people that talk a big game and they come in and they're a minor league player, right? But there's, kind of a fine line of, I can't use these bigger companies that are in town that have these massive crews and run really big operations, because there's no margin in it for me. And I just can't sell a job, with a contractor that'll charge double what I can find maybe a guy that's, a one-off, a sub, or kind of does his own thing. So a big tool, a tool that's been really useful in Omaha, for me, and I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but the Nextdoor app is phenomenal. I just, if I need somebody, I typically, post, hey, I'm a contractor in town, I do remodeling, I need a drywall guy. Anybody have recommendations for a tile installer? And usually by the end of the day, I have 5 or 10 messages in my inbox. And then I kind of just see, who's actually, trying to get in touch with me. Sometimes you'll have people that'll message you every day. And, sometimes, I'll go through, I'll look at their profile, I'll see when the last time they updated a picture was on their Facebook profile or their Nextdoor. Do they have a website? How do they sound on the phone? Do they, sound like they, can hold a conversation without sounding, I don't know what the gentle word is, but, I like to be able to communicate effectively with people. And I kind of just have like a list of questions in my head to kind of pull out of people, like, what's your experience? What can you do? This is what I'm looking for. How do your skills kind of fit into that? And certainly there's always a little bit of risk involved getting someone you don't know or, haven't used before on a job. That's kind of the risk we have to accept using subcontractors. And thankfully I've had pretty good luck with it. I have had a few that I've had to tell to kick rocks, but that's just the way it is. But Nextdoor is a phenomenal app, as well as like neighborhood Facebook pages to find those guys that are maybe either a solo sub or maybe someone similar to me that has 1 or 2 guys that they've trained and they're confident in. So I've found my tile guys that way, drywall guys, painters, roofer, electrician, really. I mean, you name it, all of my trades I've pretty much found that way, if it hasn't been someone that reached out to me, because I see the initiative of, smaller subs reaching out to me as, hopefully this person has their stuff together. But I have gotten some calls inbound from people looking for work as well.
To piggyback on that, what Riley said, you have to be super intentional. We have 2 days a week that are in our calendar that we have slots specifically for subs, meeting new subs, getting to know them. Once you get your reviews up, once we hit about 40 reviews, we started having people call us all the time saying, hey, I do electrical, I do plumbing, I do sheetrock, which is great. The good guys are usually pretty busy. So again, it's just that networking, but you have to be intentional. Like I said, we have 2 days. We don't always fill that calendar 2 days, but we do spend a lot of time interviewing, and we always go on site. We see their work. We see how clean it is. We see, we want an active job site is what we want. And we want to see some of their past work. So it takes some time. We sit down with coffee, lunch, beer, whatever it is with them just to get to know them. But it is an investment, but it is really worth it when you find a couple of guys that you can just kind of build a team around for sure.
So good.
Joel had a good question generally in the chat there that I think you guys could both speak to really well of why do you prefer subs over employees? Or anybody could speak to.
Real quick, Joel, you're working with Joel Bryce. Can you help him bring that question to the group chat?
Oh, yeah.
And Riley and Bryn, who were just talking, would love to have your feedback on the group chat to that question, because that's an awesome question. I think a lot of people could benefit from. I do want to get Ty. He raised his hand last minute, and I want to help Ty out. So Ty, what's up, dude?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Just wanted to say, Riley, thanks for your service, man. You made me want to run through a wall there. I was getting pretty excited about just being fired up for the day. So appreciate that. I'm new to the group too. I just want to say hello from Seattle.
Woo!
As far as finding subs, a good way to do that. I mean, I've been down this road a million times. I've worked with the same guys for a long time, so I'm kind of lucky that way. But if you go to like a Sherwin-Williams, if you need a painter and you ask the guy behind the counter, they know who the good painters are and who the bad painters are. I've done that a couple times. It's worked out great. I have an account at GTS. I buy a lot of sheetrock from them. Same thing. Find the sales rep. Say, hey, man, I need somebody that can help me with some texture and some sheetrock. In my new venture that I'm working on, I've been a general contractor for 10 years, but I've secured a distributorship for steel buildings. So I'm going to have to do some travel, and I'm going to have to network a little bit out of my zip code here. So I'm going to have to do the same thing. But I've always found that if you go to some, supply houses for whatever you might need, it's a really good way to find people, because they know if they're good or bad. I mean, if they suck, then they're not going to be there very much, right? And a lot of times they'll have a relationship that you can kind of, utilize in the back. So it's always worked for me, and I'm sure it'll work for you guys too. So thanks for sharing, guys. Great call today.
Yeah, I love that. What I heard Ty say, and I think this is true for everybody, you find subs by trying to find subs at the places where you would find subs. Where could you find the sub you need? You could go to Google. You could go to a vendor, a supply house, ask them for subs. You could see a plumbing truck or a painting truck and ask them if they can be your sub or if they can do a quote. That's how you find subs. Right? There's not really no secret sauce besides just going out and beginning to ask the people that you know in your network. So all that to say, appreciate you guys today. Have a great rest of the week. Great conversation. Riley, thank you for your service. Thank you for sharing, and appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you in the group chat. Bryce, could you real quickly put that group chat link in the chat? If you guys don't know what we're talking about, it's WhatsApp. Bryce is going to put a link in the chat that you can use to get that on your mobile device or your desktop. It's really a chat built for mobile devices, which I know a lot of you guys are mobile throughout the day. So, but there's a desktop version too. So we'll see you guys in the group chat. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome. Joel's a fan of the group chat, and we're a fan of Joel Bailey.
Bye, guys.
All righty. We'll see you guys.
Bro.
I love it. We might just keep that around.
The faithful few.
Keep that around. The faithful few.